they were going to make a new China that was going to be unburdened
unburdened
by what
has been.
This is what the Soviets, the Bolsheviks, did when they took over power in Russia, is that they were going to make the new Russia. People could become unburdened by what has been, so that they could see what could possibly be in the terms of a socialist utopia.
I can imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been.
Here's Paul Preston with Agenda 21.
Well, hello and welcome to Agenda 21 Radio. This is the radio show that is stopping totalitarianism, one exceptional American at a time. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, are you that exceptional American? Well, I suspect you are. That's why you're listening to this radio show right here, right now on Agenda 21 Radio. Remember to visit our website, a21r.com, and of course, New California State. New California State, state of the future. And man, are we getting closer to statehood. And are they crying out for us? Yes, that's some big stuff that's happening. We'll be down at the Capitol again. We're going to be signing some bills, and it's going to be interesting because maybe Gavin Newsom will show up with his friends. Anyway, we just might want to push that little conspiracy theory out there. We're still tracking down, of course, everything that's happened with Charlie Kirk and all this other stuff. And we brought in one of the best to talk about this assassination, and a very, very good friend of the show. And Jason Goodman is here. And Jason, I want to tell you how pleased I am that you are here. I'm going to add you to the stage here. There you go. So what do you make? All I can say is we've had you on, I don't know how many times now, and you've been spot on about everything. And we still have questions and a lot of things going on with President Trump's assassination attempt. And now we have this one, which in my opinion, it looks a lot like that one.
Yeah, I agree, Paul. First of all, thanks for having me back on the show. I agree with you. You cut out for a second there, but I think you were saying that this looks a lot like Butler, PA.
Yes.
And I think it does. It's absolutely correct. I mean, and there's several levels of that. You know, I agree with that, not just because the FBI is lying to us, not just because they got the guy right away and nothing about the details of this person seemed to match the profile of somebody who would, first of all, have the capability to do this or the motivation, just all the contradicting stories. I think you could even say, Paul, that we're starting to see a template. Now, you're a little bit older than I am. You probably have some firsthand memories of the JFK assassination. Well, for a long time, that was, I mean, even when you had the Martin Luther King assassination and the Robert Kennedy assassination, we didn't really have the kind of coverage of things that we do today. And I don't mean just from the news. When John F. Kennedy was assassinated, we had one of the first ever live video news feeds from inside the Dallas police station. It was November 22nd, 1963, and the Telstar satellite that enabled live video broadcasts had only gone into orbit in May of 1963. So everybody alive today, certainly anybody my age or younger, we've grown up with live television. It's as common as running water or breathing air. So it's difficult, I think, for the average person to put themselves into the mindset of a much more primitive information society that was only, 60 some years ago. But now, not only is the live video coverage of the news and the constant 24-hour news cycle ever present, every single person becomes their own Abraham Zapruder in that we're all enabled with these cell phones and every event is covered from all kinds of angles. So, I mean, I think, Paul, people can either look at this event and we're going to have a kind of like a branching structure. Either you believe what the news and the FBI and the government have told us and you go in this direction, or you believe that something else is happening and you go in this direction, and then the branches go off from there. So what I want to discuss with you, and I know you want to discuss with me, is we don't believe what the FBI and the news have told us, and where does that take us?
Right. There's a lot of unknowns for me now. Just on the surface of looking at it, and again, I've disciplined myself now because of all the assassinations, school shootings, and so on. We documented during the Obama era that there were several hundred school shootings. I think it was 414 or something like that. It was a massive number. That now, what I qualified as what I did is qualified as school shooting as 3 or more deaths per shooting. It wasn't just schools; it was everywhere else. Mass shootings. It all seemed to fit the same thing. Now, this one here is kind of interesting because you don't you have the cast of characters that are almost identical to what happened to Trump. And it's the same kind of setup, and even down to people not really checking the rooftops or looking around. But then all of a sudden, it's a rooftop shooter. It all starts to fit the same kind of MO. So my real strong look at this thing is that I really have a lot of questions. I really do. And if he did get off a shot that was crippling to Charlie, then I want to know about how that happened. But there's
Yeah.
just too many other questions out there right now for me to say confirm that he did die like this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's so many things to explore and unpack, and it's been, I guess, less than 2 weeks, just about 2 weeks
Right.
since it occurred. So we really are at the beginning, both of the official investigation and any kind of unofficial investigation that people like you or I or anybody watching might be interested in. And I agree, there are similarities to Butler, but we also, people are very quick to jump to conclusions. And I do want to avoid that, not for any reason other than it's going to prevent us from finding the right answer. I'd rather take more time to find the more correct answer than latch on to something quickly. And so I'm very scrupulous with the evidence that we get, and something that people have to keep in mind. They see a video and they'll say things like, "Oh, there's no shadow on the roof, so it's a fake video." But the problem is there's a lot of technical things about how video is created, particularly different types of digital video, that people maybe don't understand. And it's not really anybody's fault. These are pretty esoteric concepts, but there's a broad range of concepts in terms of how digital cameras perform and behave. I'm talking about under normal conditions. And by no means am I trying to make excuses for anyone. But if you don't understand the ways in which this technology fails, you can easily be fooled by it. And just to go to the rooftop question, look, Charlie Kirk, obviously, even now, more so than he was during his life, he's become he's become a legend, actually. And he, as they said at his memorial service, which I have to say was unlike anything I've ever seen before, he's been martyred, he's been made immortal, and now what he stood for will certainly live forever. But to some extent, while he was alive, the moment before they took his life, he really, in many regards, was just a very influential social media influencer, definitely rapidly growing. I think certainly at his young age of 31, had he lived, he would have gone on to become even more influential than he was. But he wasn't a president or a former president or a presidential candidate. So I don't know that it's realistic to expect that his private security would have the kind of resources that the Secret Service and coordinating with the local police to scan every rooftop. Again, I'm not trying to make excuses for them. I'm just saying I don't have a lot of experience in having executive protection or working with executive protection companies. I just presume that when you're paying for that out of your company's own budget, if you check the line item that says, hire 5 drones to search around for everything on the rooftops, oh, that's another $20,000. Do we need that? Forget that. So I just don't know why those security failures happen. But you're right. They are similar to what happened in Butler. Can I share some information with you, Paul? Is it easier to go full screen and I'll share the information here? Go full screen on me?
Go right ahead. Go ahead.
So
go right ahead.
We did see, am I coming in reverse, or is that just showing to me in reverse?
That's to you in reverse.
Okay, great. So you might want to go full screen on this. This is some material that I got from a video shot by a guy named Adam.
Let me get out of your way here. Okay.
Speaking of drones,
Just you. Put just you on there. How's that?
that's fine. Do it like that.
Like that?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine.
All
I
right.
just want people to be able to see this. So this is some material, and people can see this on my X account at JG_CSTT. This is from a guy named Adam Bartholomew. He's on X. He's Life is Driving on X, and he was just live streaming. He's got a son who goes to Utah Valley University, and he's a hobbyist, a live streamer. He captured this material of what I think looks like a UAV. After the shooting, it comes out, it circles over the crowd. Then there's this other item. I don't know if viewers can see it in this smaller inset, but it appears to be emitting smoke. And that's very strange to me. There are a lot of things that appear in the sky throughout this 1 hour and 9 minute video, and I've analyzed most of them. They mostly appear to be birds or insects, but these two items stand out because of the speed at which they're moving, the flight characteristics. This thing at the bottom shoots up at a diagonal in the frame and at a very fast rate of speed. It doesn't seem to be the way a bird would fly. This thing too, it's going up. Look at that steep angle. Look at that odd shape. Now, it's true, from a distance, a falcon or something might look like this if it folded its wings back and were diving, but I don't think that falcons can achieve that kind of speed moving upward. I think they generally only go that super fast when they're diving. So let's look at this again. This thing comes out right over the crowd, and it does an orbital. And by the way, Paul, we've tracked something like 20 or more birds in this video, and the majority of them are off in the valley, hanging out by the river or whatever is over there. There's water, there's fish, whatever it is that birds are interested in. I don't think birds, and again, I'm not an ornithologist, but I don't think birds are generally drawn to chaotic human activity. I think gunshots go off and birds fly away. They don't come over to where people are running and screaming. So the fact that this thing pops out, does a quick orbital over the crowd, it seems much more like a reconnaissance drone trying to get a clear image of the activity on the ground. Then the fact that we see it emitting smoke is suggestive that it's either a lithium polymer powered UAV that is maybe overheating, the batteries might be catching on fire, or it could be one of these hybrid electric gas powered drones, which I didn't even know about until we started this research. But to me, it looks like it's clearly emitting smoke. Then this next object is moving across the frame in an upward trajectory so fast, it just doesn't seem like a falcon would fly in that way. It would
that
either
looks
be
like an aircraft right there of some sort.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
So we've got some strange things there in the video frame. And, we've just been tracking that. Again, so people see this. And some people just started emailing me. I found this within the first day or two after the incident, and people were saying, "Oh, drones. So Israel did it." I was like, wait a minute. How do you come to that? I don't know who's operating these drones. I don't know what their function is, but it does appear that there are drones there. And a lot of other people, the next most popular thing after Israel did it is for people to say, oh, well, Charlie was shot with a drone. And I don't have evidence that that occurred. I just see the drones flying there. What they were actually doing, we don't really know. It's interesting to note that the individual who shot that video, Adam Bartholomew at Life is Driving, he was live streaming and recording locally on his iPad that was controlling the live stream. And I discussed this with Adam. He told me about how his live stream was disabled during the time he was shooting. Let me play this for you really quickly because this explains it. You've got this very sophisticated system that is designed essentially for professional live streaming. This little camera has its own memory in it that you record to, an SD card, and then normally it is wirelessly transmitting from Wi-Fi to your iPad, and the iPad is recording and then also broadcasting to YouTube. And the highest quality recording is normally in the camera itself, with a
Correct.
sort of a mid-level quality on this local wireless transmission to the iPad and the lowest quality on YouTube. And that's what we saw with the YouTube
Correct.
video cutting out and all of that.
Mhm.
But you told me, and this was an excellent instinct on your part, you're right. I think this overcrowding of the local wireless network wherever you are when there's thousands of people using cell phones is harming this camera's ability to transmit to your iPad and could even disrupt that. So you told me what you did for the first time was you connected the camera to the iPad by a network wire. Isn't that correct?
Yeah. So I had I have this in my backpack, and this is two battery packs, an Ethernet switcher, and my Verizon hotspot, and then my tablet has AT&T, and my phone has AT&T. So I have the three signals merged together with Speedify.
Right.
Coming off of this Ethernet switcher was two Ethernet cables coming directly out of my backpack. So I'm carrying all this weight that it used to be hanging off the tripod. Now I'm carrying it out of my bag. So, and then I'm holding the camera, tablet in my right hand, and the camera tripod in my right hand, and the tablet in my left hand. And coming out of my bag is the two Ethernet cables. My kid said I look like I'm wearing a Ghostbuster pack.
That's cool, though. But let me ask you this: is the Mevo camera hardwired to the iPad through the Ethernet router?
Yes. So I use an Ethernet adapter that allows me to hardwire.
That's the only reason we saw your video. Do you realize that?
So,
that was a stroke of genius by you, Adam.
You think so?
I know so. So that's very important, that moment, because what happened is his live stream was cut off 1 second before that shot was fired. And the only reason he was able to record this video was that he had that wired connection to his iPad in the backpack. And we would have never heard the shot that he recorded or seen the video of those drones flying around if he hadn't done that. And I noticed that when I was trying to download his video, that the live stream cut out and he didn't have the shot recorded. And that's when I contacted him and got the original video. And I believe, Paul, that what that tells us is that these drones flying around were conducting electronic warfare, that they were there to jam signals and to stop people from recording this because they don't want an Abraham Zapruder to capture that key piece of evidence that might tell everybody what's going on. The reason I assert this allegation is because I recently learned about this. This is the website of a IT security company called Oligo. And what Oligo tells us is that they discovered, this might have been patched. There was an Apple iOS update just a few days after Charlie was killed. But on September 10th, this was still a known zero-day exploit called Airborne. And what it is a wormable zero-click remote code execution flaw in Apple's Bluetooth stack that allows remote radio signals, low energy Bluetooth signals, to overwhelm your phone or your iPad or any iOS device with Bluetooth requests. And it can cause it to crash. It can cause it to disconnect from the internet. It can do all kinds of things. And I believe I've been subject to this attack as I've been going around New York City doing live streams. And for me, it's just very, very coincidental that Adam Bartholomew's live stream got cut at the key moment. I think he was a victim of one of these airborne cyber attacks. And this is going to blow your mind right here, Paul. The other thing that we discovered, people were doing some research on the open source. I guess this is data supplied by the FAA or something like that. There's a website that a lot of people know about called Flight Radar 24. And what that is it gives you all this data about aircraft and where they're going and what they're doing. And we discovered this jet. This jet is a Bombardier Global 6500 jet that is specially outfit for the United States Army. It's a test vehicle that is doing all kinds of crazy things. It's basically got this contract. Here's an article from U.S. Army taps 3 companies for cutting-edge launched effects demonstrations, including Anduril, Avex Aerospace, and Raytheon. And basically what they're testing is launching various drones from this aircraft. It's an ISR aircraft, which is intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. So the question is, did it launch a reconnaissance drone that did an orbital flight over the crowd? Did it launch a drone swarm that could do various things, including a Bluetooth low energy attack on Adam Bartholomew's video? So here's his video. Let's watch the video, the version of his video where the feed cuts out.
There's just so much.
Before we had a flag and we had.
He just got shot! Holy shit!
So that's everybody running and saying he just got shot, but we don't hear the shot. And you see the various video interference there. That's Adam's live stream being disrupted, I allege, by a drone. What do you think of all that, Paul?
I think you're onto something, quite frankly. I really do. Because, they got a patsy on the roof, but, in my opinion, it looks more like a patsy than anything else. Plus you get into all the furry business and all this other stuff with those folks. But, because this is I thought was a very sophisticated operation. And I have just way too many questions about what's going on here. And this is some good, and I saw the other drones that you had up there, but, this is a better explanation. I haven't seen it for anything. And again, they're gonna. Yeah, I'm just really blown away that there was nobody up on the roofs. There was nobody, especially after what happened in Butler. There was nobody out there because it just looks like another setup, just like it was for Trump.
I agree with you.
Same kind of people. What was that about? And of course, it wasn't the Secret Service here. Which is the other thing. It was purportedly the Secret Service in charge in Butler, but not here,
Well, I mean, again, Charlie's not a president or a presidential candidate, so it's understandable that he wouldn't have Secret Service. Let me take this just a little bit further.
The MO seems to be the same.
It does. I agree. I think the perpetrators are the same. I agree with that.
Yeah. Okay. I think we have solid fact on that the perpetrators are the same. But the methodology is a little bit different.
I would stop short of saying solid fact, but I think we can make a strong, well-supported allegation that it is the same perpetrators. Let me share something else with you, and this is research that I've just conducted as of last night. If we could go full screen again. I don't show any blood in this, but it does show Charlie being shot repeatedly. So if that's going to disturb viewers, now is the time to turn the broadcast off. But I just want to go through this with everybody real quick.
Let me get this all squared away here because we got some technical things going on here.
I know.
At this stage. Sometimes technical things happen. And
that the drones were firing on Charlie, but I think what these drones were there doing was conducting electronic warfare to suppress the opponent's communications, and that was manifest in the way we just saw, shutting down Adam Bartholomew's live stream. I think the drones, just like you would set up a Wi-Fi network in your house, and a lot of people have probably done this. You've got a signal incoming. Yeah. And okay, so let's watch this real quick and then I'll explain what I'm talking about. So this video basically shows Charlie seated in the chair. Now somebody uploaded this to Zeb Boykin. I don't know the origination of this, but I believe this shows a shot coming from behind. Right there we see what I think is a low-speed projectile captured in midair, and then Charlie's shirt collar. The projectile goes under his shirt. So it's coming from that position up in the corner along this trajectory where I believe it enters just below the base of his skull. And then the projectile is redirected about 19 degrees downward where it comes out his throat and catches his shirt. Let me run it for you again because I know that all went by very quickly, but we've got basically a projectile coming in from up in the corner in that underpass behind the tent. There it is captured midair, and there it is poking through his neck and catching the collar of his shirt. That position even though it appears chronologically in the video in the wrong order, I believe that's due to a video compression error. These are high contrast items moving very quickly. And we can discuss in a future show these concepts of how video compression works. But when you have these fast moving, very high contrast items, it can confuse the video compressor about where the thing is and when. In a nutshell, the way video compression essentially works is if my hand is here and it stays here for multiple frames of video, it doesn't get updated. As I move it, there's software that understands that my hand is moving and it's changing the pixels as my hand moves.
Right.
If I could move it as fast as a bullet, where it's here 1 second or a fraction of a second, and here the next fraction of a second, it's not really the way these video compressors are designed to work, and it can be fooled and confused as to where that point object is at a particular video frame. I need to come up with a video explainer that does a better job, but it's an MPEG ghost is what I'm saying. It appears later in time in the video, but that is an illusion. It is not a true representation of where that projectile was in real time. The other thing is, I mentioned that I got this video from Zeb Boykin. Zeb got it from someone who he doesn't know. And the strange thing about it is when I put it into my video software, this video plays at 19.9 frames per second, which is a very unusual frame rate. It should be 30 frames per second or very close to 30 frames per second. Cell phones and other types of digital cameras do use a variable frame rate, but it doesn't usually vary down that low. It might be 28, 29, 31, something like that. But for it to go down to 19.9 frames per second in bright daylight like this, either something was wrong with the phone, or it's a very, very old model phone, or something unusual is happening there. So there's more that we need to learn about this video evidence in order to really analyze properly what it is showing us. But I believe this shows a relatively low-speed projectile, not a rifle round, some sort of pellet launched from an air gun or perhaps from a compound bow. And I've seen these compound bows that can fire steel balls or tungsten carbide balls.
Yeah, I've seen them too.
They can fire these things between, let's say, 150 and 350 feet per second. And people say, oh, that's not fast enough to do any damage. But I don't know. I've seen them firing at targets. I haven't tested these things myself. I'm just looking at what we see in the video. And for our physicists out there, if a steel ball fired at 300 feet per second is insufficient to penetrate human flesh, I've just learned this morning that tungsten carbide has nearly twice the mass of steel and would generate much more kinetic energy. Forgive me, it has more mass than steel such that it would generate nearly twice the kinetic energy. I arrived at that approximate speed of 300 feet per second, Paul, by watching this video and estimating based on Charlie's 6'4" height, which he's seated, so I can't even measure him properly. But I basically asked ChatGPT if this projectile moves from this corner to the tip of the arrow in 1/30th of a second. And you know what? That's actually an incorrect calculation. It's 1/19th of a second. So I guess it would be slower. But I'm saying it's very difficult to calculate these things. And I'm just estimating the distance, estimating the time. We don't know what frame rate this thing was recorded at, transcoded to. So in approximately 1/30th of a second, this item is moving a distance that means it's going 100 to 300 feet per second. And if it's tungsten carbide or some denser material, I don't know. If it's very close range, could that shoot through his neck and come out the front? You've heard a lot of people say it's not a big enough wound to be a 30-06 round.
That was my next comment, because everybody and their mother is talking about a 30-06, and I don't see that. I didn't see it initially when I looked at it, and to me it looks like there's some sort of it's not what you think. You know, a lot of people were saying it was a 223 round because it tumbles, and what we're seeing is a bullet entering on the right beneath the clavicle and then exiting out through the neck. And
so that's what people think. But he's wearing a clip-on microphone there. That's what I mean. We've got very decimated, low-quality video, and people are making all of these conclusions based on really insufficient evidence. So let me just clarify. I'm not a ballistics expert. I'm not trying to give a ballistic analysis. You just said a bunch of things about different calibers of ammunition that I really know nothing about. My hypothesis is based on the observation of multiple experts who disagree on what is happening. So from that, I basically distill, hey, if all these experts disagree, that causes me to conclude that we're looking at something non-standard here that experts haven't seen before, and therefore it could be anything. Let me show you this piece of video.
Okay, this will be a good one here.
Well, this is Charlie entering the arena. If we can go full screen again, that's going to be a little bit important for this. This was just shown during his memorial, and it gave us a new angle that we hadn't seen before Sunday. And you can see here he is. There's the tent in front of him. They're pointing right to it as he enters. And we can see there's this entire area behind that underpass where somebody could hide quite easily. Let's watch it again. The arrow points it out. And look at this black SUV right there. Someone could have been in the back seat, pop right out with one of these air rifles or one of these high-powered compound crossbow pistols, shoot them right in the back of the head with a tungsten carbide pellet, put the thing back in the car, and who would see that? The visibility of somebody shooting from out the back seat of that car would be almost zero. And I don't know who was back there. Do we have cameras back there? You're certainly out of view of most of the crowd. It would be quite a position for a shooter to hide in. And again, I'm not saying this is what happened. I'm just saying it's difficult to understand what happened. So we need to think outside the box. People agree that it doesn't seem like a 30-06 round fired from that roof would have done this. So then the next thing people say to me is, oh, well, so Jason, how did they get the sound? Did they play the sound through the loudspeakers or something like that? And I say, no. I do believe that that type of round was fired, and it could have been shot from the roof even. Somebody could have aimed right over the building. Somebody could have aimed right into the dirt. And this is an item called the digital trigger, which is, I've never used this before. I just found it online, and I've seen a lot of tests of this. This is designed to be adapted to a wide range of guns, AR-15s and different types of things like that. And you can program it to do all sorts of different stuff. Rapid fire, multiple shots per trigger pull. For snipers, it's got various settings where you pull the trigger and then it gives a very soft pull. And I don't even understand the exact options and functionality of this, but I've listened to the inventor talk about it and people testing it enough to know that if it is a digital trigger that has electronics inside this handle, either it on its own or through some external modification could be made to trigger multiple digital triggers simultaneously. So if you had somebody on the roof, somebody off to Charlie's right, and somebody behind him with a very sophisticated compound bow, and they all had this type of digital trigger on it, and you've got a network, a drone swarm, building an ad hoc, secure Wi-Fi or other type of radio communications network overhead that's in communication with these remote triggers, and everybody back there takes aim, and the person with the air gun fires, and then all of the guns fire simultaneously. The loud shots from the remote guns are going to distract people. The fact that we have two guns in two different locations are going to confuse all of the ballistics experts online, who the FBI or any sophisticated party attempting to perpetrate this is going to know. Unlike 1963, you had Abraham Zapruder there, but he wasn't even recording sound. And you didn't have millions of people at home who have Adobe Audition or Audacity or different acoustic analysis software. They know that now. They know that people are going to triangulate these gunshots.
Just the understanding of the technology alone. I visited Daley Plaza 3 times. One was the first time I was ever in Dallas, and it was more of a business thing. But one of the things I realized when I first got down there was just how close everything is. And everything kind of goes away downhill, and then underneath, the whole, all we were doing is look at the TV screen at the time as, I was growing up. then when I finally got to go to Dealey Plaza in the early 80s, it answered a lot of questions. I was fixated with the whole Kennedy thing, and started doing my own research. And I went back 2 more times, and I realized, number one, that no one's going to get a kill shot out of the book depository. And the other was, I walked over there by the fence, and I walked over by the railroad tracks, and I walked over to the other building, and I said to myself, that's perfect triangulation.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
But let me ask you this, Paul. This is important, and your experience will inform us. So Abraham Zapruder, we now know, recorded a film of that action. But what people might forget is it was 12 years between the time that he shot that film and the public saw it. It wasn't until, what's his name? Robert, I forget the guy's last name, but it wasn't until a former Life magazine employee delivered the film to Geraldo Rivera in 1975.
That's right.
That the public saw it.
That's correct.
And so it's not like now, where that day Adam Bartholomew uploaded his video and thousands of people started reviewing it. Audio experts were analyzing the sound. Video experts were analyzing the image. Millions of people saw it in a very short time. So again, if we believe that deceptive forces conspired to murder John F. Kennedy, they had a different set of parameters to contend with to try to fool the public. And you know what? We even see the same markers in that case that we see in Butler and now here in Orem, Utah. We had that photograph of Lee Harvey Oswald in the backyard holding a rifle and a Russian newspaper. And famously, Oswald said, "That's not me. Someone has superimposed my face on that picture." Now, in 1963, film was expensive. There were far fewer hobbyist photographers then than there are now. Nobody had Adobe Photoshop. Nobody was, readily familiar with how easy photo manipulation was. In 1963, if you saw a picture, that was proof for most people. But Oswald is quite probably correct that that photo was doctored. And I've shown evidence that photographic evidence in Butler, PA was likewise doctored to fool people into thinking Thomas Crooks was on the roof, when I believe it was actually Maxwell Urich. So now here in 2025, 1 year later, we've got yet another level of sophistication that I allege
really
involves.
Much of it fits the same MO in terms of you've got lax security. You got a shooter up on the building, and just doesn't. It seems exactly the same as what happened with President Trump, except he got lucky. He turned his head, even down to what was going on with drones that were external to the actual shooting, or maybe internal. You never know. But you got the drone. There's clearly a drone that you pointed out that was very well seen right there. And I thought to myself, well, geez, we got to go back to Jason here and get and it's replicating very similar things to what happened in Butler. And so it makes me think that these are the same cast of characters who pulled this one off. The problem is for them, I think, is guys like us, and especially you know what you're doing in terms of all these, the video and the sound and everything else. It's going to defy some pretty big stories, I think, as we get to the truth on this. But they're a little bit more sophisticated, I think, than the last time, but not much. Not much, too much evidence. And the other thing too, in the evidence about Kennedy, because I visited there 3 times. When first time it was in 82, I think, and then 85, and then 87. It was very, very obvious to me, the close range of everything. It's all right there, and how easy it was, I think, to pull that off with a crew of 2 or 3 people, rather than the hopeful thing that Lee Harvey Oswald did it. And the reason why I say that, when I was a kid, 19 years old, an Italian buddy of mine, his dad had bought a Mannlicher Carcano pretty much at the same time that the Kennedy shooting had taken place. He had paid $15 for it. So we went out, and I used to live out in the country. We got all of our weapons together, and we brought that gun. and you cannot chamber 3 bullets in less than it's going to take a couple of minutes to chamber the bullets. It just wasn't logical what was happening with that gun. So I discounted that right away when I went back there and visited, made my own determination. But by then the facts were starting to come out, like you're talking about. Nobody knew anything about any other videos or anything until Geraldo Rivera came up with stuff. And that was years later. Look, now we have everything right now. And, this examination, I think, is leading to something else. I think it's a smaller caliber weapon. It's not a 30-06, I don't believe. I mean, I fired a 30-06 and hit targets. It leaves quite a big hole, actually. So I don't see the hole that happened there, but I do see that I think that Charlie is dead. I really believe that. I think there's no doubt about that. There are too many people are seeing that. But how it happened and who did it is the big question. And it's starting to smell a lot like the same people who tried to pull off the assassination of President Trump.
I agree. I do agree.
But the question is, how are we going to get there to find out?
Well, we may never learn the truth, but I think by persisting in the way that people like me and you are doing, we're going to get closer for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I really appreciate all the work you do because, you just bring so much to the table in terms of getting this understood very quickly. And who would want to shoot Charlie Kirk? That's the other thing.
Those kind of questions, I mean, that becomes more complicated. I think when you become rich and influential, you have a lot of enemies, and there are certain people who have their own kind of foregone conclusions, and then they sort of search around for evidence to prove those conclusions. I don't like to do that. I like to look at the evidence and see where it leads.
What do you foresee in the next several weeks as more things come out?
I would really like to see the original footage. That's the most important thing. If anybody knows anyone who was at Utah Valley University and shot footage on their phone, we absolutely have to obtain the original footage from the phone, not through an upload through X or TikTok or YouTube. It's got to be the original footage because all of these errors get introduced with each process.
So how do people get a hold of you for that?
The best way to reach me is to follow me on X at JG_CSTT, and people can DM me on there, and I will respond. Certainly, if you have footage, people can also go to crowdsourcethetruth.org, where there's an upload portal that they can upload files to, and they can watch sponsor exclusive content that I produce on subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. So there's lots of different ways for people to get in touch with me. And again, always scrutinize what the source of the content that you're looking at is.
Right. Got another question. What's going on with the New York mayoral race out there?
It's looking like we're going to get Marxist, anarchist, lunatic Zoran Mamdani, but I certainly hope not. New York is a disaster right now, Paul.
I've been watching it, and there's a couple of other places that are turning out to be disasters too. Like in Michigan and in Minnesota, those kind of places. There are a lot of disasters unfolding. Your thoughts on that?
I just hope that we don't lose this country. It's already unrecognizable to me. I mean, I'm recently over 50, and I'm getting into kind of like, telling people in their 20s and 30s some old man type stuff, where this country is not the country that I grew up in. And it's not a joke. It's very serious. I mean, our rights have been repeatedly infringed upon, and we're in danger of losing this country.
Yeah. No, we agree. That's why we're doing the New California thing. And again, that's we'll be making a presentation in a couple hours down at the state capitol. We have a big thing going on down there. But totalitarianism is really on the march. There's no question about it. And it's right here in this country. And the more we can push back on it, the better. We're doing all that we can. And I know that you do the same thing in everything you do. You were going to say something, though.
I was just going to say that one of the most, as horrible as this murder of Charlie Kirk was, I think perhaps even worse is to see the incredible array of people online and elsewhere who are reveling in it and saying this is a good thing. That was shocking to me.
Yeah, that was really a shocker to me, but, you gotta remember how many years that we've had Obama, and then we had Biden, we had critical race theory, we had all this stuff. I credited it, being an educator, I saw this whole thing start to happen when they brought in a Race to the Top, and, that just changed the whole dynamic of the education system and how these kids were being educated, and everything went to the federal level, so your local control of schools was completely gone, say by 2012, which is right at the time of Obama. And so we've had the whole gender confusion business. That was something that was pre-planned. We were dealing with that in the 90s in Orange County. In fact, we're still dealing with it in some respects. But the situation when you federalize public education and you federalize everything at the state level to the public to the US to the federal, you get problems. That's not the way the system is supposed to work. And so we're pushing back like crazy on all that stuff and trying to get rid of things like race to the top. We will because we're forming a new state. That's the thing we get into. So, but it's quite a challenge. It really is, and I see it. We have bigger challenges ahead as a country.
I absolutely agree. I just hope we can succeed, Paul, because it feels like more than ever we are on the brink.
Yeah. Well, yeah, especially you out there in New York. Well, anyway, tell us how we can get a hold of you and all that.
Yeah, Crowdsource the Truth is where I'm at on all the different social media things. As I said, at JG_CSTT on X, crowdsourcethetruth.org, subscribestar.com, and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth is where people can get me to see my sponsor exclusive content and to support the work. And I want to thank you for inviting me back on, Paul. It's always good to see you and
Yeah.
speak to you and share the latest research.
Well, I'm sure we'll be on together here shortly as more things start to unfold because they do it. We don't have to wait, like what the Kennedy assassination, we're waiting 40 years for answers. It doesn't seem to happen now. It happens in seconds, and that's a good thing. Jason, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you, Paul. Have a great day.
Jason Goodman with us here on Agenda 21 Radio. We got to run for time, and please visit our website, newcaliforniastate.com and Agenda 21 Radio. And, of course, we've got a big thing going on down there at the Capitol today. We're going to be making some statements about some of our bills and so on. Anyway, thanks for listening to Agenda 21 Radio. And remember, stay strong, America.